A stunned and battered Iran is turning to its closest allies as it weighs how to respond to the U.S. attack. Iran's foreign minister has arrived in Moscow for talks with Vladimir Putin and other senior Russia officials. There's a deep partnership between the two countries that has grown in recent years, especially after Iran supplied Moscow with drones and missiles in its war against Ukraine. And then there's North Korea and China. Iran and North Korea reportedly share missile technology and nuclear research, and China maintains strong diplomatic and economic relations with both countries. Joining us now to break it all down is former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul. Ambassador, thank you so much for being with us. Just give us the take of the Russian leadership as the strikes against Iran are happening and the United States is being drawn into this war.
Well, the Russian government, many different officials have criticized the strikes, as have many countries around the world, by the way. There are very few that have supported us besides Israel. Second, this is a blow to the ally, Russia's allies. You just rightly pointed out, Iran has been very central. There are drones every day being used against Ukraine. This is an ally. And I think more broadly speaking, Russia's role, Putin's policy, I want to be clear about that. Putin's policy in the Middle East has suffered yet another blow. He lost Assad, Hamas and Hezbollah are weakened. Now Iran is weakened. So the short term, this is very bad for Russia. But in the longer term, I think this is actually good for Russia in two ways. One, we're now legitimating preemptive war. That's what Putin says he did against Ukraine. And now that we've joined that, this is just how great powers act. I think that's bad for America's long-term interests. And moreover, you mentioned North Korea, you mentioned China. We are now isolating ourselves at a time when China looks like the country that's the responsible stakeholder in favor of sovereignty, in favor of international law. That, I think, hurts America's long-term interests as well.
How do you think our allies are looking at us tonight? Obviously, there's unease here and abroad, but are they shocked? How is this going to impact America's relationship with our allies going forward? Are they buying this administration's story, or at least initial story, since Trump's own messaging tonight seems to be signaling at regime change, but at least this was this sort of central tactical strike that was going to be decisive, and we're not planning to really enter a war here. Many see it very differently now, but how are our allies interpreting all of this, and how do you think it's going to impact their decision making?
Well, I'm glad you brought that question up, because there's been a lot of conversation over the last 24 hours that this is nothing new. Presidents just attack countries. This is normal American unilateralism. That's not true. Our allies supported us in 1991 when we went to war with Iraq. Our allies supported us in 2001 when we went to war with Afghanistan. Our allies were split when we went to war with Iraq in 2003, but then President George W. Bush had a majority in the Senate and the Congress that supported that action. In 2011, when I worked at the White House for President Obama, our allies supported us again, and we had Security Council resolutions from the United Nations because Russia and China abstained to support that action. What's unique about this action today is there's no congressional support, no UN Security Council resolution support, and no resolution from NATO or any of our other allies. We went it alone. And I think that's significantly different than all those wars and attacks that I just described.
Do you see Russia's involvement in this potentially with Iran for a lack of desire or a lack of capabilities? Because obviously Russia is embroiled in the war in Ukraine. It had to rely on Ukrainian drones and even close-range ballistic missiles. Why would Russia now not, if it could, and that's what I'm asking you, do you think it can versus it doesn't want to? But if it could, why wouldn't it want to help Iran, a country that has stood by it in its invasion and war in Ukraine?
That's a great question that I don't have a great answer to. I think their capabilities are very limited. They are fully overextended in Ukraine. and the idea of shipping weapons. Some have been speculating we're going to give Iran nuclear weapons. The former president of Russia said that, Dmitry Medvedev, in the last 24 hours. I don't think they have a lot of capabilities. That's in the short run. In the medium term to long term, two things are very clear. One, we'll never have a UN Security Council resolution trying to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Remember, the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal from 2015, that just wasn't the United States and Iran. That was Russia was a part of that. We will never have them together to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And second, in the long run, when Russia does have that capabilities, I think we should fully expect that when Russia can, Russia will help Iran against us. I just think the world is divided now, and they are together, and hopefully we will put together a coalition of allies in the future. But in the long run, you will see Russia much more supportive of Iran. Think about their missile defense systems, the S-400s, S-500s. Those are the kinds of weapons that we used to help prevent Iran from having that I think they will now have in the future.
Ambassador McFaul, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, was on some of the Sunday shows this morning and said something to the effect of France and Germany should be supportive of what we've done in bombing Iran because Iran has been in violation of the JCPOA, which those other countries, I guess, are still party to, even though we are not. What do you make of that argument?
So why not convince them before you bomb Iran? Mr. Secretary, why not make that coalition before the military action? And by the way, why not convince members of Congress that this threat is imminent and it has to be done now? That, to me, puts the United States in a much stronger position to try to have to convince half of America after the fact and our allies after the fact, I think just makes us look much weaker. And I'm prepared to listen to that argument and think that maybe this had to be done now, but they chose to strike first and then ask people to support later, both the Democratic Party and our allies. I just think that's exactly the wrong sequence of events.
Ambassador Michael McFaul, thank you so much for joining us tonight.